You can't be what you don't see. So if you don't even know that that is an opportunity for you and that other people in those seats have a story similar to yours, then you don't even think it's attainable. That is the number one reason I share my story.
Sometimes the people who are kind of in the trenches with you, that have gone through things with you, that are able to kind of see you a lot more clearly.
I want to continue to support folks who feel like they're alone or folks who are in spaces that they feel like they've never been before, so they feel out of place. No matter what story they have, no matter where they come from, their voice matters.
Hello and welcome to Paperless Pathways, a podcast for stars by stars. My name is LaShana Lewis and I am your host. In this episode, we're joined by three incredible guests. Kelly Powers, Associate of Integrated Marketing at Opportunity at Work, Ivan Santillan, Data Services Analyst at Opportunity at Work, and LaFawn Davis, Chief People and Sustainability Officer at Indeed. Together, they'll share their real-life incredible success stories and how they advance their careers through non-traditional pathways. I hope you enjoy. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining today. We have Ivan and we've got Kelly, and they're going to go and tell you a little bit about themselves. So let's start. I'm going to put Kelly on the spot. Kelly, tell the people who you are.
Hi, people. I'm joking. Hi, everybody. I'm Kelly Powers, also called KP. I work at Opportunity at Work. I am a star, loud and proud and passionate of what I'm doing in the world. Yeah, I'll tell you more about my story later on. I want to pass it over to Ivan.
All right. Ivan, go ahead.
Thank you, KP. Thank you, LaShana. Pleasure to see everybody. My name is Ivan Santillan. So I reside and born and raised in Los Angeles, California. I'm also proudly a star. Really excited to get into my story about sharing basically my experience throughout my time as a star, through professional and personal experiences. So happy to provide that side, both sides of things. So I'm excited to get into it.
Awesome. Well, then I'm going to keep you on the spot. Spotlight's on you, Ivan. So I see here that you've gone through a few different jobs, just like one of our candidates for president at the time of this recording. You worked at McDonald's. And going from there to, a furniture warehouse, and now you're like in data analytics. So I assume that it's going to be probably very similar to a lot of our stories where you kind of stumbled into tech, not knowing necessarily that's where you were going to begin. So go ahead, tell us about your story. Like, how did everything start for you?
Yeah, I mean, it all started for me like many right out of high school, right? You're sort of pressured, and all you know is that one size fits all approach to education, to success, right? Going to a higher education institution right out of high school, making the grades to go to a 4-year university, right? Ultimately, right out of high school, I didn't even know what I wanted to do. I was just figuring myself out, right? Like anybody who's going into turning 18 into becoming an adult. You're about experiences and figuring things out as you go. So right out of high school, didn't have the grades to even apply or consider applying to a 4-year university. So I took the community college route, did a semester right out of high school, ultimately because I wanted to keep my parents happy. They kept asking me, like, what are you going to do right out of high school? If you don't know, you need to go to school, right? Get an education, right? That's the norm for a lot of folks where I'm from. So yeah, it was tough, right? Like not having the grades. Not only that, even if I did have the grades, even if I were to somehow miraculously get accepted, just I couldn't afford it, right? It's a scary thought to be in debt. So ultimately, I tried a semester of community college, attended a community college in Compton, California. It's a local community college not too far from me. but quickly found out it didn't feel like the right path. It just wasn't the place for me. So I conformed to working a dead end job. So started working at McDonald's. Really, really great place to start, getting into the workforce. It was my first real job. Gained a lot of experience working with customers, working with I found out what it was like to work with other people outside of high school, right after you graduate. So it was a great experience, but ultimately had to find another job to gain more income, right, to support my family. So I found a job through a friend working at a furniture company, warehouse furniture company, but quickly hit a ceiling there, right? Just even asking for opportunities to grow, what felt like you were pulling teeth, right? So I had to find another way, right? I ultimately knew that the one-size-fits-all approach wasn't for me, and I was adamant in figuring out another way to be successful other than going through the higher education route. So, yeah, hopefully that helps sum up everything.
Yeah, no, you're good. Because, we're speaking to people who, may be at the beginning of their career or their journey, very similar to where you're at. And to hear, how, first of all, you were like asking for opportunities to grow, which is something very akin to many people who are stars, people who are skilled through alternative rights, like all three of us routes. So it's more of like, where can I grow? Where can I go? And a lot of times we are asking those questions and, we run into those roadblocks. And a lot of them are, as we say with the tear the paper ceiling, it's that barrier that keeps us from going into those higher wage jobs. So I'm going to pivot over to Kelly. Kelly, you want to talk a little bit about your journey?
Of course. Thank you, Ivan, for sharing. I feel like we stars always have like kind of a similar like starting point. Like we just never know where to go, especially like right after high school. I feel like my parents were definitely like, if you don't know what to do, you should just go into the medical field. And I'm like, okay. So I ended up like leaving high school, went to CNA training, went to medical assistant training. And then I finally like was stopped in my tracks when someone asked me like, are you happy? Do you want to do this? And I was like, no. So that's where I ended up becoming more passionate about being in marketing, being in social media, being in the digital world. I ended up transitioning, not the regular way, because you just during the pandemic, no one wanted to go to school. No one wanted to do anything. It wasn't for me for school. I ended up just picking up like random clients, I would say. That's when I pretty much started like picking up clients, helping them with their digital, helping them with their social media success, learning how to do campaigns without even knowing what a campaign was. So like marketing wasn't straightforward for me, like at all. I worked in the medical field, advancing into different things, got accepted into nursing school. So that's what I like pretty much like froze. And I was just like, yeah, no, I'm good. I'm okay. I'm all set. And that's when I ended up being like, okay, this is where you need to like sink or swim. That's like pretty much fight or flight mode like happened. And it was just like, you know what, like let's just keep diving forward. Let's keep going. Ended up working at a couple events, helping with social media. And then someone just walked in and literally was just like, let me know your story. Told them all about my story. And then the next thing you know, I ended up getting like this like awesome like reference to opportunity at work. And I was just like, oh no, but like I can't. It's not like I just can't. They're not going to want me. And then you end up reading through everything and you're just like, oh my God, like a light bulb just like clicked. Like it's like when you like put on like some tight pants and it just fits and you're just like, whoa. Never in my world, like never in my life, I would never like assume that it would happen. So then I ended up like just going full throttle, being like, you know what, I'm going to apply my learnings. I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to go to this interview. I'm going to do what I need to do to get where I need to go. Ended up working out and they were just like, yes, girl, like come through, like show us what your skills are. And I was just like, I got tons of skills. I can show you that. I was like, paper, not so much, but it was just like a perfect fit. Like I am I'm happy of where I am today. I'm happy for the struggles. Like, I'm happy for the tears that I shedded through my life, because that made me gain what I needed to gain to work in the real world. You need to, like, no one is ever going to tell you or teach you how to work with different personalities. So, like, being in, like, this new world of, like, going through full throttle into marketing, knowing how to, like, work in the corporate life is just, like, it was just, like, made for me without being made for me. Like, and then being surrounded by people, like, had the same struggles as me, or still going through the same struggles. It's still being like, how do we level up and all that other stuff. But pretty much that's, like, me in a nutshell. But I'm still continuing to grow. I'm still continuing to, like, skills don't stop. Like, at the end of the day, like, the skill stop. Learning don't stop. You need to keep going, because the world is just going to keep learning and growing with you, with or without you. So I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to keep putting one foot in front of the other, and we're going to see where life takes us, because I've been loving it so far.
No, I mean, I'm glad that you took that additional risk and leap. I mean, without it, you wouldn't have known that, you know, you fit exactly into this spot. So I was like, oh, okay, well, that's good to know. That's good to hear that you know, went and you took that challenge on for yourself, and you decided, you know what, you know, I'm going to go ahead and go. And I'll even add for myself, one of the things that I did, and definitely, if I did not listen to the facilitator for Launch Code, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. So otherwise, I would have just been like, no, you know, I'll just, you know, sit around, I fool around the computer or whatever. So I want to ask, especially for both, you know, Ivan, you, but also for Kelly, did you kind of become like that de facto go-to person? And is that the thing that kind of maybe motivated you to go into the directions that you did?
Yeah, 100%. So I think that's what ultimately kind of made me cross paths with Year Up, because I mean, I started to ask myself, like, what am I good at? What do I find myself continuously doing when I'm at home? And it's computers, right? When it came to downloading software or re-imaging a computer or scanning for viruses, like, I was somehow the person that people would always come to. So I started to ask myself, like, how can I make a career out of that, right? So I started to look for IT training programs, and thanks to Google, I found Year Up. I think I typed in IT training paid programs or something like that, and Year Up was literally the first thing that came up. So yeah, I felt like I was kind of at home the expert, you know, when it came to, like, cell phone issues, any technical issues. Ivan was the first person they would ask. So yeah, in a sense, like, that's when I started to tap into, like, yeah, I think that's when self-awareness started to be a thing for me, where I was like, okay, start to pay attention to things that you bring to the table, right? That way you can advocate for yourself. That way you can start kind of putting a name to what you want to do, right? So I think that's really important. I think that was definitely a milestone for me to start noticing these things. So yeah, that's a great question, a great segue to how I found Year Up as well.
I 100% agree. I think it took, like, for other people to, like, recognize the thing that I'm doing, like, with, like, event planning and social. And I literally was just, like, always on social media, always on websites, always on, like, you can do this or you could do that, or people, like, reaching out and saying, like, well, what do you do? Because you do so good. And how do you? And I'm just like, wait, am I the expert? Like,
Yeah.
like, yeah, I am the expert. Like, this is what you should do. Like, you should always represent, like, half of your audience. You should always think of yourself as, like, you should be selling to yourself. Like, you should be providing for yourself. Like, you should be always supporting yourself first, because this world is just crazy and you need to do that. But, like, that's how it ended up being, like, an eye opener for me. Like, when someone else was just like, you're doing great. Like, you need to keep going. Like, and I'm like, yeah, you right. Like, I do. Like, you damn sure you right. Like, I was like, yeah, I'm going to keep going. But it helped. It helped a lot, like, being recognized by other people, because I don't think us as stars, like, it's not in our, like, it's something that we need to learn in our tool belt. It's just, like, something that's just not already in our tool belt. Like, we do go through our imposter syndrome. I think everyone still does. I think I still do. but it's just like having the recognition from other people, even like when you're not in that, like not in the role that you want to be in, but like you're also getting pointed out in certain roles or certain responsibilities that like you are good at this, and that can lead you into something totally different. Like, but this is all a part of our star stories, so I do appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, what are we without those people that are, our support systems? That's what I try to tell a lot of people, is that, it's those people that, I grew up with, people in my environment that kind of pulled me over to the side and said, you know what, you're actually really good at this. And again, we were talking about on a, different episode about how those allies and those champions are so important. But yeah, so we can kind of pivot this conversation. We could talk for a while on like everything that we've kind of gone through. But, I'm interested to see, what are you interested in looking at now? Like, I feel like at every point in time in our life, we have a different place we could pivot to. Like, what is the next thing that you've kind of got your eye on that you're like, maybe I might want to dip into this? Or if you're happy where you're at, don't let me pressure you. But I'll start with you, Ivan.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I think for me, I really find that I like storytelling, right? I think in a sense that like kind of led me into data analytics because I wanted to find out what it was like to be able to storytell through data, right? Given that I was just really passionate about storytelling. Storytelling for me started as a passion when I started working at Year Up. So I don't think I mentioned this, but right after I graduated Year Up, literally, I'd say like 2 months after I graduated, I got hired by the program to work as a staff member, as a recruitment specialist. So just sharing my story, which is obviously, like, if you ask me, it's pretty easy job for me to share about myself and share what I went through. And ultimately, the goal there was to help people make decisions on whether they wanted to join the program or not, right? Learn through my experience. So I think that's when I started to notice, like, I love to storytell. I love to share experience, even advocate for other people or share stories of other people that I've heard about to motivate others that they can also do it, right? So those things started to really, I started to take note that these were things that were my passion, which led me to working at Opportunity at Work, right? Just given the mission, given the advocacy, the storytelling of stars, right? Even, before I started working here, didn't even know I was a star, right? Didn't even know there was a name to it. So that's important. That's key. And you get that through storytelling. So when I think about the future, I think about, I want to continue to support folks who feel like they're alone, right? To feel like, or folks who are in spaces that they feel like they've never been before, so they feel out of place. I want to be the person to help them realize that they're there for a reason, right? They also have a voice, no matter what background they have, no matter what story they have, no matter where they come from, right? Their voice matters, because I've also been in those spaces where, just feeling like you don't matter is the difference between you feeling empowered, right? And that makes a difference, right? It makes a difference in the way that you show up. Makes a difference in just feeling motivated to do what you do on a day-to-day basis. When you feel empowered, it's different, right? It feels like there's purpose to it. So yeah, that's what I want to continue to do. I don't know what that looks like in a couple of years from now. That's why I'm trying to learn as much as I can in the world of data analytics. I'm also interested in like learning more about the public policy side of things, because I know that's a huge driving factor in influencing employers, not only in the public sector, but also in the private sector, to hire more stars, right? I think that's really important. So yeah, also getting into that side of things is really something I'm interested in learning more about and getting into. So
how can I compete? Oh my God.
No, correct.
Amazing, Ivan. Well, that's like, I'm your supporter. I'm right here for you. Future goals. I think when I was recognized and when I recognized myself as a star skilled through alternative routes, I think that just opened up a whole new door. Or like, I think of it like as a rainbow. Like there's so many different ways, colors, or like directions that you can go in. And like, I will, like, for me being in marketing now, I definitely want to level up in my career because I want to be able to manage or be a director and get other people that were like me being like, nah, girl, like you can do this too. Like there's no framework around getting through what you need to get through to like be a higher level into your career. But if we talk about future goals, like I've always wanted to be like a comedian. I've always wanted to dabble into like other little things and being influencer. Like, so I'm definitely working on those on the side. But like that also helped me like know that like you don't need just one job or you don't need just one destination to like level up in your career. I think if you have multiple different aspects of like what you love to do and if you can get through it and if you can do what you need to do at the end of the day to make sure you're surviving. And if you can have fun while doing it, I'm for it. And I will, like, I'm 100% support it for myself. So I definitely want to like level up in my career. I want to be able to hire and get other people that are like me and like just boost their confidence up and get them to do what they need to do and to know that they're not alone. Like, just like you said, Ivan, like to let them know, like, you have a voice too. Like I have a voice, like, and I'm going to shout it to the rooftops and I'm going to make you laugh. And I'm going to make sure that your Instagram and your social media accounts are looking fabulous because we're going to make sure everyone levels up and hears the anthem of the stars. But side note, I'll always try and be like the little comedian at the end of the day. So I'll level up in that career too.
And that's awesome. Thank you both for sharing that story about, you know, what you're thinking about. We'll catch you on Insta, I'm sure, Kelly, as you're going through your influencer, you know, progression there. And I did want to ask Ivan a question about, I know you were thinking about some other things. Have you ever considered diving a little deeper into AI and what that might mean in the future?
Yeah, 100%. Definitely. That is also another thing, right? And there's a lot of opportunity for stars within that specific industry as well, right? So learning about that, especially seeing the need for it as well. When I was in customer success, when I first started here at Opportunity at Work, we're working with a lot of companies that were getting into automation, right? There's a lot of self-driving vehicles now, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Tom, here, and you know, Waymo is here in LA, so yeah.
Yeah, so with that comes a lot of need for techs, right? And a lot of need for folks who understand AI, who want to get into that industry, right? And there's also a lot of opportunity for stars to get into that, right? So yeah, definitely. I think AI is a lot to learn from. And a lot of opportunity for stars and also a lot of other folks as well. So yeah, excited about that.
Awesome. And Kelly, I know you're on your journey still. And I want to ask, and because I'm sure you've done some investigation on your own. I've been kind of on TikTok. My wife has helped me out a lot with that because I'm one of those people that was like, you know, the TikTok, whatever the clock app, the news stuff. Try to, you know, wrap my head around it. I'm more of a viewer, less of a poster. Have you noticed like this surge in kind of like more information about people who are stars? Because I've started to see kind of, you know, some people talking about different journeys and alternative ways of thinking about things. Like, what does that look like for you?
I think social media, especially TikTok, is the best way to get that message out there. It's just more personable, especially when it's coming from a person, especially because it's not coming from like a regular account or a bot or a company just trying to shove information down you. But like you want to hear people, like you want to hear real life stories. Like I love the stories that are like, oh my God, I have a house and I went to college and oh, cool, baby girl. But I do thrive. Like I hate the stories that some of the people that have, but like the star story is just so genuine. Like, you know, and you can feel and you can relate and you can just be like, I understand exactly where this person is coming from. Even if you don't have the same pathway, we all go through our own different struggles, our own different skills, our own different repetition of knowing what to do or what to do next, or our parents or our friends, or everyone is just like, what are you doing? But seeing the message get more explosive on digital channels like TikTok, it just helps. It helps spread the message. It helps let people know that you're not alone. This world is changing super fast, and I know when I was a star and I needed the message to be heard, and I ended up finding it, it just hits a different way. It hits your heart, it hits your soul. You can connect. Like when you get them little chills down your back, like when you're really listening to someone's story, that's how you know you've met a star. You learned something in that 2.5 seconds of that video that we cannot do anywhere else on other digital platforms. So I do appreciate all of our influencers and all of our other marketing people out there in the world who want to spread the message of stars, because we need to be in those people's ears. We need to be in all those other beings out there you're not alone. Just like Ivan said earlier, you're not the only one that's going through this, but we need to also break the silence to let people know that you can level up. You can do so much more with what you have. And I think the best way to do that is through TikTok, through Instagram, through any of these digital platforms, because that's the best way where our stars are. That's where the facing content is. That's where they're going to see it. And that's how we're going to connect. And that's how we're going to get the whole world to at least shift and be oh, yeah, we need to change. We need to change. If you're not on TikTok, please get on there.
I'm on it now. I'm on it now. Looking for a job can be overwhelming, but the right support can make all the difference. Whether you need expert job matching, resume support, or career coaching, these incredible platforms are here to help. Indeed connects you to jobs that fit your skills and experience, including roles that do not require a degree. SkillUp offers comprehensive career exploration resources and a job board featuring remote positions for stars. Coach by Career Village provides AI-powered coaching to assist you in your search. These Tear the Paper Ceiling Coalition partners are here to support stars just like you every step of the way. Ready to take the next step in your career? Visit tearthepaperceiling.org to explore these resources and more. When it comes to community building, what are some venues that really help you? Because, I'm starting to get onto Facebook groups and other things like that. And that's where I find the intersectionality. So for instance, I'm on a Black nerd group, a Black woman nerd group. And we talk about all things nerdy, but every now and then we kind of dive deep into some of the barriers that we face. And we find that a lot of us have things in common, and we're able to kind of go from there. So were there any communities that either one of you dipped into unexpectedly that was just hey, these are my people, and I learned a little bit about where I could go?
I think for me, when I think about community, I think about Year Up when I was there during my time. I was in a cohort of, I'd say, about 30 to 40 students. All with a similar approach, right? Of wanting more for themselves, right? Wanting to succeed, wanting to improve their current situation, and wanting to gain experience through on-the-job training. So I found community in that. We also were taking, so Europe had a partnership with West LA Community College, where as a student, a Europe student, you were doing the Europe program. And then on the side, you were doing a couple college courses, community college courses. And we had the same classes. If you were in the IT cohort, you were taking the same courses, you're doing the same lectures, you were having to do the same homework, same classwork, right? So with that comes, your peer groups, right? You start to connect with them on Slack, and through other platforms. So that was somewhere where Discord was another platform that was commonly used for a lot of the students that were in my cohort, to share tips, notes, right? And you find friendships through that, and you find connections through that. Even during year up after, so it's 6 months of learning and development, they call it, where you get educated, basically. You get the fundamentals down, right? Where you get the fundamental training and preparation to go on to a 6-month internship with one of their corporate partners, right? So once you find out where you're going to intern, the company that you're going to intern for, it's like, like, what? You're going to that company? That's awesome, right? Like, just a new sense of motivation that comes from it, right? To know that you're going to start a 6-month internship with a well-renowned company, right? With a partner company, and also getting excited for your classmates who are going to Snapchat and like all these other companies to intern, right? And throughout that 6 months, you start to ask, like, what's your experience like, right? You start to compare experiences. You start to share stories. You start to understand the work that others are doing, right? Just similar to what you're kind of doing as well. So that's important, especially for stars who don't feel like they fit in because, like I mentioned before, they didn't take the one-size-fits-all approach, as I call it. So yeah, just Europe brought that sense of community. And even then, right after graduating the program, you would have folks who would connect other folks to job opportunities, right? People who would get converted by their companies and come to find out, oh, there's another role opening up in my department. I know my classmate from year up, right? I can't tell you how many stories there were of people connecting other people to opportunities after graduating, right? So that to me was a community for sure. Fortunately, it's a couple years after. I think it's, what is it? I'm hitting 6 years since I graduated year up. Of course, like a lot of people, you lose connections, but I still have connections on LinkedIn, right? And connect to folks. Use a lot of people as advocates, right? A letter of recommendation. I know I can reach out to a few folks from Europe. So it's just awesome. I love the Europe program. It was that, and not only students and classmates, but also staff members, right? There were also connections and people that would advocate for you. So that to me was important. That community was important.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you for sharing that community and connection. And again, like you said, somebody being like, hey, I graduated out of Europe. I know Ivan. We were in, a cohort together, and, he would be a great fit. And that's how you get those people who are your allies that come through. And I tell people, as much as we want to find people that are up our level, don't miss the lateral. Sometimes those connections end up being more, fruitful than trying to, scrape and scramble and get somebody from a higher up position. It's sometimes the people who are kind of in the trenches with you, that have gone through things with you, that are able to kind of see you a lot more clearly and, help you on your next step. And Kelly, I would love to hear from you. How did you find community?
I think I'm still finding it. But I would say, like, where I work now, here, Opportunity at Work, it definitely is like you feel a sense of community support, something that you don't really have when you first start out, especially when you feel like when you don't have what you can do and like, or like the things that you can show that you can do without like literally like having it listed. But just like you said, Ivan, like LinkedIn really helps. Like social media is really good, really important to me. Really like an easy way to like find people who are going through the same things that can relate to you. But even like my own family, like letting like I feel like I'm my own like influencer at my house, because constantly letting people know like you don't need to stay here. You don't need to be where you are. Like there's so much you can do. But like giving that community-ness to like your own friends and your own family, like letting them know like you don't have to stay where you are. Like, be your first, like be your own advocate. Like I think community first is like when I found it in myself, is when I finally started supporting myself and not letting myself get like down in the dumps. It's just like, but like giving myself community, like giving myself like the reasonable like things that like you need to do. You need to level up. You need to like, come on, like you want a network, like let's go find it. Like you want community, let's go do it. Like you want the job, like let's go apply for that. but like giving it to like my family and my friends and close people around you. And then even your coworkers, like boosting them up. Like, just like Ivan said, like referring people that you know that like don't have that what they have, like what they don't have this piece of paper, but like, hey, I know like some connections and I know other people in other departments and I know other locals that like are actually trying to hire someone that's actually a good worker, but like being that community, finding it your own. But I do feel like myself anyway as a star right now, like we don't have that. But like, just like you said, LaShana, like Facebook groups are like maybe a perfect way to start, just because it's like it feels like a long text message sometimes. Like you don't need to read everything, but you could just like throw in there and throw your 2 cents and all that. But like just starting off a conversation and doing all that. And then recently going to like events, like corporate, like I went to this Indeed event recently and I just met so many people that were in corporate life, but they even recognize themselves as stars. Going to digital marketing, like conferences and stuff, like I really branched out and found like network that way. They were stars, some of them weren't, but like just knowing like people in the field that you're working in, like they know what's going on or they can look out for you, and just leveling up, especially in like a new career, being in corporate, being a nonprofit, being in like the buttoned up areas that you like I'm never really in, and just finding people that will support you and be like, hey girl, like let's talk this through. Like if you have a promotion coming up, or hey, you have an interview, like let's brainstorm. Let's think about some potential questions, or like, hey, you're gonna be on a podcast soon. Like let's prepare. You know, like finding the community that's gonna help you with your day-to-day things is like something I'm very passionate about, and I feel like I bring that to the table. Like that's one of my skills. So
I'm loving it, Ivan. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you. I always appreciate hearing from you both. And I hope that we can see where your next step in the journey will be. Your job search doesn't have to be a solo journey. Whether you're crafting the perfect resume, preparing for interviews, or exploring career pathways, the Tear the Paper Ceiling Coalition partners have the tools to support you. JobCase offers an AI career counselor to help guide you in your search and provides a STARS community hub to engage with other job seekers of similar educational backgrounds. Hire Heroes USA offers specialized career support for veterans and their spouses. No matter where you are in your journey, these resources can help you land your next opportunity. Visit tearthepaperceiling.org today to access these services and take your career to the next level. Hello. Well, I'll just say that thank you to LaFawn Davis for joining us today. I'm going to shine on you a little bit because I looked you up on LinkedIn because I was like, you know, let me see a little bit about her. And I saw that you're like Fortune and Fast Company and the San Francisco Business Times and listed everywhere in addition to actually, you know, being a VC, which is something that I was really interested in. I actually apprenticed at a venture capital firm. So I love that people who are stars like ourselves tend to kind of come with that, you know, I've gone through this journey. So now let me reach back and help the next person come up. And with that said, thank you for coming again. And I wanted to kind of start off with you just telling us a little bit about you, because that's why people are here. They want to hear your star journey.
Sure, LaShana, thank you. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm very, very honored to be here. And, you know, it took me a while to understand that my story was a story, right? I was just kind of surviving and going through life. And it wasn't until, you know, recently or later in my career that I understood that this is actually a superpower. And I have gone through a different journey than some of my other colleagues or some other people who had the kind of career that I had. So I grew up in San Jose, California. So I was born and raised in the Bay Area, and I am still in the Bay Area. I am the youngest of three, and my parents are still together. They've been married for 56 years. And I graduated high school. I used to play basketball and volleyball and soccer and all of those things. But I also used to work. I've been working since I was 14 years old. My very first job was at a Black-owned flower shop, which is interesting because I kill things now. I don't. Flowers.
My wife is the green thumb in the family, so I get it.
Flowers are big too.
Giving it to her. Yes,
I don't do that. But I would play sports. I would work. I've worked retail, all of those things, and I did go to college. I went to San Jose State. I just didn't finish. I didn't get my degree. I had my son pretty young. I was in my early 20s when I had my son, and I just started working full time. I didn't finish out my degree at all, and so it was a lot of. It was a beautiful time because it was during the first .com bubble that I started my career, and you could do anything. I was in became Silicon Valley, and so I didn't know how to say it at the time, but I had an operational mindset. So a lot of the jobs that I had in the beginning were around operations, and I loved it. It's still my love language.
LaFawn, if I could just say, with your operational mindset, was there somebody like in your life that was like, wait a minute now, this might be something that you might want to tap into? I know I had that in my life. So it's just like, as you're telling your story, I'm like seeing these little pieces here, and I'm like, I wonder if you did have like a mentor or a sponsor or just somebody that looked at you and was like, hey, this is where you need to be.
So not early on, and I didn't know the words to say that I had an operational skill set. So not early on, but when the bubble burst and the .com bubble burst and I couldn't get a job, I got laid off for the first time. And I went from making $90,000 an hour to $11.75 an hour. And even that, I was out of work for 6 months. Again, not knowing what skill set I had. I was like, but I've been in all these operational roles. I was an engineering project manager. I don't understand why I can't get a job. But the requirement was that you had a degree. So even though the job description had the skills that I had, I had to have a college degree. So the job that I got, it was making now $11.75 an hour. A friend of mine got me that job because I couldn't find work for at least 6 months. And that was the first time I had been unemployed. And it was through those new experiences, starting off there at that rental car company and then going to a semiconductor company where a fellow actually took me under his wing and then showed me that I have an operational mindset. He taught me how to build schematics. He got me more into a technical role. I started as like an executive assistant and then a chief of staff. And he said, I have something in you that is different than someone brings to this role. And I was just a sponge, right? I wanted to learn. I had the appetite to learn. And so he just recognized something in me where he took me under his wing. And that was the first time where I was like, oh, I was so ashamed, LaShana, of not having a college degree.
Oh, yeah. I get it.
No, I didn't want to put it on my resume. I didn't want to, right? I was trying to do everything I could to smoke and mirror so people didn't know I didn't graduate because it was a source of shame.
Yeah. No, I remember even for myself just kind of writing in that, I did this and this was what my GPA was, like anything to try to get people to just kind of see more of me.
That's right.
And then say, I'm just trying to get you past that hurdle so you can see the actual skills, the actual things that, I can bring to the table. And that makes me think about, when we're looking at the labor market, you're in the employer seat. I'll put you there. So now that you're kind of going out and you're looking back from that seat, what is something that you would have like maybe told yourself back then and said, these are some of the things, to focus on. And these are the things to kind of throw away a lot of the myths and assumptions that we tend to fall into. So I'm just kind of curious, what would you say now that you have this insight from a different perspective, like in general?
Yeah, to be honest with you, LaShana, I would focus really on one thing, right? So I mentioned that I had a lot of shame. And I do think that stopped me from getting into certain opportunities. And so if I had to go back to myself then, I would focus on the shame. So there's, shame and guilt are different, right? Guilt is I did something wrong. Shame is I am something wrong. So it was deeper than just, I don't have a degree. It felt like that I was not good enough. I wasn't smart enough. I had all these people around me. Remember, this is the tech industry. So I had all these people around me with degrees and masters and PhDs and just really, really smart people. And I shrank myself because I had shame. Well, now, I mean, my pronouns are she, her, queen. Okay. So that should tell you that there's
Love that.
the difference now in the confidence that I have. I no longer have shame, and I see the value in the different life experiences that I've had that some of my other colleagues that have more traditional credentials don't have. And so now I'm like, no, this is a good thing. I actually think differently from you. And my experiences actually have shown me something unique that you can't bring to the table. And so there's less of that. I don't have that shame anymore. Now I can see my skill set for what it is. And even now in the role that I'm in, which is pretty new, I took on this role of Chief People and Sustainability Officer in the last few months. And even in this role, I'm using my operations hat, right? Because I tell people I'm not an HR leader. I'm an operator, and I happen to lead people and sustainability. And that's a different framing that I would have never had early on in my career.
Well, I mean, thank you for sharing so much of that story, because I know, that sometimes we even feel a little bit of the pain and that comes through. But I think through that, we're showing other people that, I understand and even commiserate with where you're at. It's not just words and, just speaking out and saying the nice things. It's just more of I relate and I understand on like a very heavy gravity level, exactly what you're going through and exactly some of those struggles. And with that said, I see that some companies are starting to try to change a little bit. They're kind of turning the curve. We've seen the rise in semi leveling off and a little bit of fall when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion, and how that is starting to play a role in hiring, recruitment, and retention. So for you, exactly, what would you say to like a fellow employer that's kind of struggling and saying, well, where do I start? What do I do? How do I get more stars?
Yeah, I think, the first thing as leaders that we have to do as employers, if we really have to stand on what we believe in, right? There is a lot of fodder happening right now. It's political weaponization of DEI, and I think what we're going to see, LaShana, is the people who really believe in it, the companies that really believe in it versus the companies that never did in the first place, because that's what's happening. And I can speak for Indeed and stand on it that DEI is not going anywhere for us. It is fundamentally a part of who we are. If you want to have more inclusive hiring practices that really recognize skills over degrees, right? We're talking about stars and being skilled through alternative routes. So how do you need to look at your workforce differently than you did before? I think part of it is really understanding the labor market, as you mentioned, and really understanding what stars bring to the labor market. What we know is that there are more than 70 million stars in the U.S., 70 million, which makes up
half of the workforce.
Half
of
the workforce. And so if you're an employer and you're not focused on stars, you are limiting your talent pipeline. And that just doesn't make any sense, right? And if you bring that into diversity, 62% of stars are Black, 54% are Hispanic, and 66% are rural workers, and 61% of our military veterans, all stars.
Right.
They're all stars. So as opposed to just focusing on a demographic or a population of people, if you just focus on people that are skilled through alternative routes, you're already going to hit a diverse population of candidates. That's the first thing that an employer can do, is just recognize the labor market. What's more is that we know, thanks to the research from Opportunity at Work, is that we're already, and I say we because I'm a star, right? So we're already doing many, many jobs that already require degrees. You know how if you see a job description and you see 10 different bullets and you're like,
Right.
yep, I got it. Ugh, I don't have that degree. That's the role that we're in right now, right? We have the skill set to do these roles where there were degrees that were required. And I think for a lot of us, those opportunities have really big impacts on economic security. You know, so stars tend to make a lot less over time as far as salary goes, just because we lack a college degree, but we're doing the roles that dictate the same level as those that do. And so recognizing that, a lot of us can move into roles where we're going to make a good 70% more than we make right now, if more companies recognize that certain jobs actually don't need the college degree. And I want to say clearly, there's nothing wrong with having a college degree. That's a beautiful thing. It is a great accomplishment. This is more that there are other ways that people can have experience in education, and we could be making the same as people who have just the education that got them in the door. And so that tells us that this is less important and we have to reassess degree requirements to help employers really hire based on skills. Again, it's not discounting a degree, but it's saying, do you have the skills for the job, and really assessing the role for that. So we have seen companies do that. We did that at Indeed. We remove college degree requirements where it wasn't necessary. And we know other employers are doing the same. That one step alone is going to fundamentally change an employer's talent pipeline.
And I could listen to you talk all day, LaFawn. I really could. I am mesmerized. I'm sure many of our listeners are just kind of zoned in and, going in places in our heads where we're just like, what can we do? How do we change this? But one other thing that I noticed, on your beautiful resume there, is that being a board member, you have a different sort of leverage and a different ability to change things. Have you seen things change just in your involvement being within organizations and maybe, turning the page on some things and saying, maybe, we don't need to have this particular thing in the description?
Most definitely, LaShana. And again, I think it helps that I'm at Indeed and I can say we're doing it too, right? I like to say we drink our own champagne or sparkling apple juice or water or whatever it is that you're into. Because I don't like saying eating our own dog food, right? That's
right.
Who's doing
very tech speak.
Yes, very tech speak. I'm like, we're going to drink our own champagne. That sounds more festive. But really, it's about us doing something to create change so that we can help other employers do the same. And it's really simple. It's really simple. We've removed our own college degree requirement where it's not necessary. And then we ask employers to do the same. We've become a fair chance hiring employer. And we've asked other employers to do the same. That barrier, having a criminal record, is the only barrier where it is legal in the U.S. to discriminate. You do not hire someone just because they have a criminal record. And so when we talk about barriers that people face when they don't have the traditional experiences looking for jobs, this is what we mean. And so we have to do it first so that we can help other employers. And I have seen significant change. I have seen really big organizations become fair chance employers, remove college degree requirements, focus on the other barriers, because what no company will argue with is the fact that it is hard to find the kind of talent that they want. And if you talk to job seekers are like, I can't find a job. So there's a mismatch in that. We know that there are millions of people with the skill sets that employers need. Why aren't they finding each other?
And I think when I'm talking to you and realizing how many times the employer may have run into that question in their head of, is this really effective? Do I even have stars within my own community? Have you ever run into a scenario where maybe you're out talking, maybe you're out speaking, and maybe somebody else kind of comes to you and they're just like, LaFawn, I'm also a star. And, I didn't know, one, that was a name, that was any community that existed. Two, they probably never even knew it was half of the workforce. And three, to know that somebody made it to the C-suite and is a star. And it's not like the C-suite of 1930s. It's the C-suite of 2020s. Have you ever run into that? And what impact did it have on you?
Always. I always run into our community, and it makes me so happy. It speaks to my heart, and it is the number one reason that I share my story. I share my story so other stars can go, oh no, but one, now it gives me the language, right? Because like I was saying earlier in my career, I didn't even have the language to say I have operational skill set. And so sometimes it's that you don't know that it's a thing until you hear the language. And so I share my story so that they can see someone who is a star in the C-suite. They can see that there is a different path. The whole old adage, you can't be what you don't see. So if you don't even know that that is an opportunity for you, and that other people in those seats have a story similar to yours, then you don't even think it's attainable. I would have never even thought this was attainable without getting a college degree. And so that is the number one reason I share my story. And when I share my story afterwards, always, there's either people who come up to me like, hey, I'm a star, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And how can I actually help my company understand the skill set I have? Because they put me in this role and it's too junior for me. It's because I don't have a degree, but I can do so much more. Or I've even shared it a lot within Indeed. And I always get like Slack messages like, hey, me too. Right?
Those Slack messages, I get them too. It's like, I thought I was the only one. And he's like, no, I'm a systems engineer and, I'm a star. And then, let's talk, let's meet, let's have lunch. And the stories and the backgrounds and the similarities and everything is so enlightening because, we love community.
Yeah. And it creates a community. The language around it creates a community. The stories that we share creates a community. And I think that's a beautiful place for people to be in. Everybody wants to be a part of some sort of community in some way, right? And so this is ours.
Well, LaFawn, it has been more than a pleasure talking with you this past 20 something minutes. But again, I could probably listen to you all day, and we could probably sit and have lunch and just have so many stories that we can share. Is there one last piece that you would love to kind of get out there into the universe, something that's sitting in your heart or on your head that you're just like, if I could tell another star, another employer that's thinking about a star, one thing, what would that be?
Well, my advice will be different. So if it is a job seeker, or even if you're an employee and you're trying to navigate your own company that you're already within, I would say make sure you highlight your skills. Get the language to describe the skills that you have. Right? Then the degree won't matter. Then you won't do what LaShana and I did, which is try to hide the fact that we didn't graduate.
Right. Don't do what we did. No.
Necessary. You don't have to be ashamed of not having a degree, but talk about the skills you have. You are skilled, right? It takes me back to when I had my son interview with me at 7 years old and create a resume. And he said, I don't have anything to put on here. I said, but you do. Do you help around the house? What kind of skills do you think that means?
Right.
You do this for your grandfather. These are the skills that you have. So think about yourself in that way. And sometimes explaining it to another person really helps. One of the best things I did in my career is I had hired a resume writer. And the reason that was wonderful, besides the fact that I wrote my resume, is because they talked to me about my career and what I did. And it was in ways where they're like, hold on, did you understand how amazing that experience was? So you went to the White House and you spoke on the Hill. That's not normal. Right. And I'm like, oh, right. Sometimes we get in our own way because we do struggle with that shame or that guilt. And We don't understand how amazing we are. And if we don't understand how amazing we are, we can't convey that.
Right. We regulate it. We tell ourselves, oh, everybody does this. When I was brought in to talk to the president of a Fortune 500 company, I told a coworker, and I was like, oh, I assumed everybody went in to talk to the president of the company. They were like, no, LaShana, that's unique. That's different that he's asking to have a meeting with you.
That's right. But you're compensating for the fact that, oh, okay, this is probably what everybody does, and I don't have a degree, and so I'm not in those rooms anyway. Not knowing that you created your own door into those rooms.
Mm-hmm.
That's a skill that we don't often have. The language, the influence that you had to have to get in there and talk to the president is a skill.
Yes.
And we don't always have that language. And so for job seekers or for employees who are stars trying to figure it out, first, get a good understanding of how amazing you are and understand that you being skilled through alternative routes is a superpower. It is not something to be ashamed of. Now, for employers, I would say, recognize the skills that you need, not just now, but into the future. Not the people, not the title, not any of that stuff. What skills do you need for the future? You know, AI is all the rage, and people are either leaning into it or they're afraid of it. There's a little bit of in between, but dating myself a little bit, we used to have the digital divide, right? And I believe AI could be that next step of the digital divide, where a lot of people who don't lean into it or are afraid of it are going to be left behind. And I don't want that for any of us, right? So our chief economist, who focuses on the market and all of that, has a beautiful line that I put it on. I said, put it on the Twitter. I don't say X because I don't know what that is. But it's AI is not going to replace your job, but people who know how to use AI will.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, I once said, doing an interview, people were just like, robots replacing us. This is before AI. And they were just like, everything was going into automation. And they're like, our robot's going to replace us. And I was like, no, because there needs to be a human on both sides. Humans need robotic processes, but if there is not a human on the side to tell you what it is, you don't know what it is that you're creating. And then there needs to be a human to create that process. They need to create an update, right? That, automated machine or whatever. So
otherwise we're in an episode of Black Mirror and nobody wants.
Yes.
Right. And so this is about recognizing the fact that AI, one, has been around for a good 50 years. It's not new, but it is all about automation. Automation throughout our history has always come in and disrupted industries and displaced people, but also created much more opportunity for others. So if we think about AI as automation, and you think about, the people listening to this podcast, what is it about your job that AI could automate so that you could focus on the more important things, on the more human aspects of your job, on how to be more innovative, right? Like that's how we need to think about it. And that's how employers need to think about the skills that they need for the future. So that way we don't have a mismatch anymore where job seekers and employers can't find each other. They should be speaking the same language.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking the same language. And if it's okay, I would love to end on that point. Thank you, LaFawn Davis.
Yeah.
Let me get your title right.
Okay.
Chief People and Sustainability Officer at Indeed.
That's it.
Thank you for listening to Paperless Pathways. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on YouTube. Please make sure you follow us and subscribe to the Paperless Pathways newsletter so that you can stay up to date with future episodes. Next month, we'll sit down with Natalia Lara and Melinda Venable, stars on staff at Opportunity at Work, Barbara Leach, who's also a fellow Stars Advisory Council member with me, and Zane Richards from Untapped, Closing America's Opportunity Gap on Netflix, to talk about tearing the paper ceiling across various industries. It's a great episode that you won't want to miss.